This is the FRC Roundtable, coming to you all the way from Minnesota. Your host team 2052 Nightcrawler presents this weekly FRC gathering where FIRST Robotics competition teams take cooperation off the field. Share your knowledge, give and get advice, solve a challenge, or celebrate what makes your team special. 3, 2, 1, go!
Welcome everyone to the Sunday night call. My name is Scott Davis. I'm a mentor for Team 2052.
And I'm Max. I'm a sophomore on the programming subteam for Team 2052. We would like to welcome you to tonight's FRC Roundtable. Before we get started, we have a few housekeeping notes. So the Roundtable is recorded for YouTube, so we'd love for everyone to share their camera, especially when they're talking. But we also respect student privacy. If you would like to keep your camera off or change your Google Meet name to your first name or initials only, feel welcome. Participation in the roundtable is voluntary. However, you must be 13 years or older. See our website for more information about the FRC Roundtable, including our complete privacy policy at team2052.com/roundtable. You can also join our mailing list and sign your team up to host future roundtable call. Finally, be sure to follow our podcast on Spotify. And now on to the show. Tonight, its call is hosted by, well, no team, really. I think it's more of a conglomerate this week. And our topic is on MinneTrials. So everyone, feel free, welcome, and let's get started. All right, well, MinneTrials. Just as a quick show of hands, who here has participated in MinneTrials before? There's a hand raising feature here just to get a. All right, so looks like most people here have at least a little experience. But it looks like there's a couple of people who don't really have experience, so we can go over it really quickly. So MinneTrials is kind of a simplified first FRC game. It was originally started by Team 3100 Lightning Turtles, but then Technocrats kind of took over the lead role. And then I think No Mythic, you guys are in charge of it now. I don't if any of you guys are here. Looks like, yeah. So originally it was called Turtle Trials, then the test, and now it's MinneTrials. Essentially, everybody uses kit bots or modified kit bots, or the chassis at least, to keep the price low. And it is simplified. So it's a alliance of 2 robots versus an alliance of 2 robots. And they run a simplified regional. They change the game every year. I think No Mythic, you guys write the manual and do all that kind of stuff. Yeah, and we all have 6 weeks to build a robot that can compete in early December. All right, Scott, got anything to add to that, or?
I think the only thing to add, Max, is that it's a combo of people from Windchill, No Mythic, and Technocrats.
Oh, okay, yeah. So right. I'm on the team long enough.
Yeah, it's all on the backside, so you don't really see. But
all right, yeah. So Nightcrawler, at least when we host or when we do MinneTrials for our team, we typically split our team in half, or for our new kids in half, and we build 2 robots, and we have our captains act as mentors. Is this similar from what other teams do, or do other teams have these captains take a more in-depth role?
We've been running 2 teams lately, and we have students apply to be MinneTrials leads.
All right.
And they essentially act as captains of those teams, and frequently they have not been leads of any sub-team or captains on the team before, so it's also a new experience for them and a way for us to train in new leads before the season.
That's actually a really good idea. So it's like your normal interview process for your actual captains, I assume?
Yeah, it's a application for a leadership position. Yeah.
All right, cool. All right. Well, we can talk a bit about previous games here. So I personally have done MinneTrials for 2 years. The first year I did it, it was Corn Conundrum, which was, I believe, 2023. 2023. And that one essentially was, we had wiffle balls tied together, and you had to like lift them up and place them at a silo. This was actually my first year on the team doing this one. And I did a lot of the programming for it. And personally, for me, it helped get me as a new programmer able to learn how our team structures our programming projects, especially with what the hell. Sorry, excuse my French, but what are like subsystems, commands, and all that kind of a thing. Yeah, what is everyone else's experience with MinneTrials and how it helps their team?
Jason, can you help us out with the first 2 years? Because there were 2 years before Corn Conundrum, is that right? But I don't remember. We didn't do the very first year, and I cannot remember the name of the one that we did do the second year.
I'm pulling them up right now. So the first one that was outside, that was beyond just Lightning Turtles internally. So 2021 was Parcel Panic, which was the dodgeballs, those yellow power cells from Infinite Recharge, into open top cardboard boxes that were then placed on a shelf. And that was an interesting year because you could push all the game pieces out of the field, and the human players could shove the dodgeballs into the cardboard boxes and really pack them in there, and then slide the cardboard box back to the robot, and then they would drive over to the shelf and place it. That one was, I think there was only 4 FRC teams represented there, and there were 7 MinneTrials team or like participating teams there. So that was kind of the first year without a group, and then the first year Nightcrawler participated was 2022, which was Zoned Out, and also the links in the chat here with the live stream. It went out in a second, but that was pool noodles turned like wrapped into a ring and taped together, and then there were 9 posts throughout the field that you could put the pool noodles on, and it was essentially whoever's ring was on top had control of that area, and you got points for connected zones, and you got points for placing them. And then there was the
Rapid React.
Yeah, the balls from Rapid
balls,
React. Yeah. And I don't think anyone did anything with those.
No, but the idea was that you could place the ball on top of the post to cap it, so no one else could store on that. So that way you would permanently control that zone. That was a very strategic. There was a lot of strategy for that game, but yeah, we tried, but I don't think anybody successfully capped a post that year.
Yeah, that one was a little too much on the strategy. We've learned from our experiences.
And then this last year was Beach Bash, which is taking beach balls and tossing them over nets. And then there was like shark balls at the end that you had to push into an area, I think. That sounds about right. Yeah, I think you've had very, very different games every year. So I'm, for one, as the strategy lead, I am very excited at dissecting this rule book when it comes out.
Yeah, there's a few keys like as we're designing the game, and I was not involved in game design this year, so I have no advanced knowledge to share. But we're shooting for a game that is less complex for a robot standpoint, right? So most FRC games require multiple mechanisms to fully play the game, right? So there's usually 1 or 2 mechanisms required during the teleoperated and autonomous period to manipulate the game piece, and frequently you need another mechanism to play the end game portion of the game, right? 2 years ago with the cones and the cubes, right? You could use one, not MinneTrials, but FRC game, right? You could use one mechanism to hold both frequently, and you didn't need any additional mechanism for the end game because you were driving onto a ramp. And that was a common complaint from participants, right? Is that sometimes they didn't say it in so many words, but the lack of needing a second mechanism for the end game made it less exciting. MinneTrials generally does not require a second mechanism for the end game to simplify this, right? So that your robot, you're starting frequently with a kit of parts drivetrain, you're building a mechanism to go on top of there. That mechanism can start outside your frame perimeter. It can stay outside your frame perimeter, right, to simplify that. And then you can frequently manipulate one or both game pieces with that mechanism if there's two game pieces, and play most of the game with that to simplify and get all of the students on your team to experience the whole part of a season, right? From, like Max said, from analyzing the strategy of the game, which is something that we find students don't get when they do off-season events, right? Because the robot's already built, the strategy's already been considered quite a bit, right? And so having that from the get-go of analyzing the strategy, prototyping and brainstorming the mechanism, designing it, building it, testing it, and seeing how it works at competition.
And yeah, I think that's the appeal of MinneTrials, is it allows for teams to have this like practice season almost, where all the new students on their team can go from having a kickoff that is similar to the actual kickoff and reading a game manual that's written like the actual game manual and going through the same process as they would in the actual season, to get these new students to a point where they are not surprised when the actual season comes around and then they're doing the same stuff. And it also acts as a bit of a training, at least on our team. All these students are doing new things for the first time, and they get to see the actual application of what they're learning.
From a mentor's perspective, when I look back at that first year we did MinneTrials, we got done with MinneTrials, and I will say that there was a bit of apprehension that first year, because we're kind of like, man, we have so much to do in the fall. Do we really think that we can build an extra robot? How are we going to do this? And we had been really struggling with trying to figure out, how do we do effective build training in the fall? Because we've tried to make it so that every student had to make a part. And we've done some things as simple as every student has to make a bumper bracket, and it's got to be the right size, and the holes got to be drilled. Holes have to be drilled in the right spot. And back then we didn't have fancy tools. We were using hacksaws, and so you had to saw and file and drill, all with hand tools. And that was part of the training. And boy, that's super exciting for kids to make a bumper bracket, right? So then we thought, well, let's make some LED lamps. And so that involves multiple materials, riveting, more tools. And I think 2 students got done with that lamp in the fall. And again, you're sort of bottlenecked with, well, we only have so many rivet guns and things like that. So things went a little slower. Then we tried to make a structure from a schematic that one of the students had designed. And so the students had to make this structure, and then the 2 groups had to come together to make it so that it would fit. And so you had to follow the rules, and that didn't work. And so we decided, well, let's try to make a robot. Let's do MinneTrials. And at the end of that, our students were like, we are 100% going to do this every year. They just loved it. It was very good training, but it was also very fulfilling, because you ended up actually doing a competition and actually making something that moved or that did something. And so it was a great experience that students definitely wanted to repeat. And that's a big reason why we're still doing it, is because it has truly become some of the best training we've ever done in the fall, from the perspective of our build students. But then even from beyond that, the programming students, the robots are usually really simple. And so there's really not a lot of programming to do. We did put encoders on our chassis last year so we could do some autos. And so that was the first time we actually had some students, kind of really programming students, really digging into the code. Because typically you're turning on a motor, or you're turning off a motor, or maybe you're making the motor go backwards. it doesn't really flex the programming muscles like it does for the build students to do things. But now by adding encoders onto our kit of parts chassis, now we have the ability to actually do a little bit more fancy programming. And for those students that get through the intro to Java stuff, they actually can get a little bit more experience, and they can build that more in-depth commands and subsystems that Max was talking about earlier. And then finally, for the media team, this year we're really going to try to. Well, we did it last year. We had our 2 robot teams make reveal videos. And so we're going to do that again this year and really try to flex those media muscles as well during MinneTrials teams and take advantage of the opportunity to say, hey, we got a robot that moves. So how are we going to shoot a robot for a reveal video?
I'll add to that. We actually embed our media students. We divide them out into the 2 groups, into the 2 teams right away. So they're in on the prototyping, they're in on the build, the design process, all the different pieces. We really want them to be part of that too, even if their focus is media. We want them to be seeing that whole process start to finish. Partially because when we do get to reveal video, and like Scott said, we're using this as a primer for reveal video. It gives us an opportunity on the media angle to talk about what makes a good video, what makes a reveal video really kind of pop as the car sales ad for your robot when we hit the actual season. It helps build camaraderie and relationships with the media students, so they're part of the build and programming side, because they're often off in a different room working, since they need some quieter space a lot of times as we get up further into the season. And we want them to have that opportunity to move into builder programming potentially in the future if they decide they want to flip to different teams. So it's kind of a fun way to get them excited also.
Max, do you want to run through sort of how we run our schedule from kickoff through the competition?
Sure. So currently, at least, the plan is to next weekend or next Wednesday have turn our actual meeting into the kickoff. So it's a normal meeting. We have a 3-hour meeting that day. And we'll break into 2 groups and spread out our, the new returning students that or the returning students that typically have maybe done participated more in previous seasons that are not leads. I don't think we assign leads to teams. Scott, correct me if I'm wrong.
Assign what?
Leads and captains to the 2 teams.
No, we don't. But we do. I mean, the way that Nightcrawler runs is we try to have all of the new students do all the building and programming, and then returning students sort of act like captains, and captains sort of act like mentors, and mentors just try to put up some guide rails so that we move forward and kids find success in some way, whether that's just having fun or learning something new or feeling that sense of accomplishment. So we sort of try to take every level of what we would call leadership in a team, and we just elevate that up one step, and we put our returning students sort of in charge of the design and the build and things like that. And our returning students more act like captains to give some leadership in those roles. Does that sound accurate? And did that
that sounds about right. And so we'll typically split into 2 groups. Typically it's like the blue team or the red team. And then we'll have them go through we'll have within those groups split into smaller groups to read through the game manual. And then at the end of that reading, we have them each present on different parts of it. This is just what we do for actual kickoff. So it just helps read through and fully understand the game manual. Then I think we do like a human robots thing. I think we're going to do that again this year, which is just typically it's mentors just taping out the field with old game objects like a note or a piece of coral as stand-in game objects. And then we have people walk around the field and act like robots so we can try and determine which is the best strategy. And typically captains will figure out different archetypes for different types of robot beforehand. But for MinneTrials, that typically is like one or two different designs. Yeah, that's typically the first meeting. We figure that out. We might get to design on the first meeting. That's, I think, still a TBD for us. But then after that, that's the next step is coming up with designs and prototyping, which typically takes a week or two. We do have like that first everybody together, draw out designs, come up with different ideas for mechanisms, using those archetypes in order to determine what, designs we're going to want. And then I think, yeah, so then afterwards it's kind of prototyping, testing. Build students will start on that. And then programming students and media students will split off and do their own tasks. So I think like media is going to take photos, videos of this whole process, come together, think about how they're going to work on this to come together into the revealed video and other media products that they're working on. Programming is going to work on, I think we have every single programmer program the whole robot, and then we combine that into one program. I think that's what we're doing this year again. And then typically a week or two before MinneTrials, the build team will finish up the robot and hand it over to programming to test and run autos. And then it's the competition. How does everyone else run their seasons? If we can get some people talking. Don't gotta raise your hand.
I'm walking around with a baby, so I apologize if the video quality is not very good. We do a very similar. Last year we had our two captains lead the MinneTrials teams. Very similar. We did a kickoff. We didn't do a human as robots for MinneTrials, but I think that's a good idea we do that for real kickoff, but we didn't do that for MinneTrials. We might this year. But how do you do any kind of survey, or does any teams do any kind of survey as far as trying to get like variety of interests on each team? Like we have certain kids who are interested in programming, and if we just randomly assigned, there might be 8 on one and 2 on the other or something like that. Do you kind of do it by interests, or is that not really a thing?
Go ahead, Max. You start.
So typically students already know what sub team they're doing beforehand, because we have like 2 or 3 weeks of training before MinneTrials start. So most of them have committed to 1 or 2 sub teams and gone through a substantial amount of training for that. And then typically we have a survey of who is doing what, and we'll try to get an equal number of build students on every team, an equal number of programming, equal number of media.
We also have the captains and the mentors decide how to break up the teams, and we do that strategically so that we're trying to get equal skill sets into each group. So we want to do that. Now with the new students, you really can't observe the skill set so much as just the participation level maybe, and so we're trying to make sure that the teams end up being sort of equal in terms of how fast they can do their tasks. That's really tricky to gauge. And sometimes it doesn't work out. Often you'll find one group just naturally clicks better and they make progress better. The other thing that we look at is we observe what looks like maybe potential personality conflicts, or perhaps students that need to be separated because they spend too much time chatting or something like that. So we are very strategic, and we did not do that the first couple of years, but now we have sat down and really thought hard about how do we want to make these teams so that everyone has a good experience and the teams can sort of pace at what we think is likely to be the same pace.
Yeah, we just some backstory on us. I listened to this call 2 years ago during Corn Craze, and I was just in love with it, and I wish we would have been able to do it then. So we marked it on our calendar a year before we did it last year. And then I was at the state fair, and the captain for Technocrats was there. He was like, "Oh, I hear you're gonna do it. Like, make sure you do 2 teams," because he was asking me how many people are on a team, and he's like, "You really got to do 2 for that to make sure everyone gets a chance to be hands-on because." It is a simplified robot. So to give people the chance to really feel as invested as you possibly can, especially the new people. You know, I would just advocate for that if at all possible. And I really appreciate, the captain and this call for getting our team to do it because it really, in a similar vein, it revolutionized like making people invested in it, and then you get the competitive part at the end, which is really fun. So.
Amanda asks in the chat if we know when the game manual will be released. It was insinuated to me today that the game manual would be hopefully released on Tuesday. So we had already put our game reveal night on the schedule. I think it was 4 weeks ago. We said this is Wednesday was the day that we were going to do our kickoff for MinneTrials. So we picked this date long before we knew anything about the manual date. If it turns out the manual does not drop on Tuesday or Wednesday, then I guess we will just continue our intro training that we've been doing. I'm sure we'll have more than enough students who would appreciate an extra day to try to get some of that early training stuff done. And we'll just use it as a catch-up day. And then we'll do it the next meeting or whenever the manual is released. Jason, didn't you, and maybe you still do this, don't you purposely not do your reveal so you compress your schedule to simulate the 6-week build season?
Yeah. So there's I would say it's uncommon that teams actually start on the same day. Most teams are all over the board for when they start. My teams historically have started after MEA. Because I think one year we started the Tuesday before MEA, and then everyone was gone over MEA, and then they came back and they forgot everything about what they're trying to do. So we usually start after MEA, and partially to compress the time scale a little bit to apply a little bit of that build season pressure. Because with high schoolers with lots of time, then sometimes or even adults, right? If you have plenty of time, you assume you have plenty of time.
And for anyone outside of Minnesota, can you share what is MEA?
What does MEA stand for? I don't remember.
It's Minnesota Educators Association, something like that.
Yeah, it's 2 days of professional development for all teachers in Minnesota. So high schoolers all students don't have school for that Thursday and Friday. Yeah, and lots of people go on vacation. Mm-hmm. And there's a big conference somewhere. I don't know, the convention center probably. But yeah, thanks.
Dr. B.
We had assumed as 2530 that this was like our new thing and we should do this. It sounds like super fun and like a really good educational initiative for students, and about one drive base. We have sort of a maybe partial other drive base, but it sounds like 2 teams sounds really like a good idea rather than just one. Can you tell me what you think about 1 versus 2? And I think honestly, the idea of having 2 different groups build 2 different concepts and sort of compare the ideas and bring them both is great. But I don't know if 1 versus 2 is the best or required, or let me know.
Students you have, there's a lot of teams that only have one. A lot of FRC teams bring 1 team, right?
We're big.
Some of the larger teams like Nightcrawler. Jeremy right now is slated to bring 4 because he's crazy.
Jason, that's a secret. We're keeping that on the DL. We're not.
All right.
We have 16 new students, so we have like a third of our team is new. We're probably going to be 46 to 50 students.
No, 43.
So honestly, we probably could do 2, not probably 4. Yeah. But we have probably 2 drive bases that we could do, and that would be great. But I didn't know we could do that, honestly, until right now.
It depends on the team. So some teams like to do 1 MinneTrials team and have a few of their veteran returning students work with the new members on building the MinneTrials robot and have a large portion or a small portion of their returning members focus on fundraising, other outreach events, right? Other projects that are going on, and split their team that way. Some teams like to have everyone from their FRC team working on MinneTrials and split across 2 teams. We, from the get-go, allowed multiple teams for MinneTrials because we wanted this to be an opportunity for every student on the team to get exposure, right? So, like in the MinneTrials rules, one of the expectations is that you rotate your drive team every match, right? And so you're getting everyone on your MinneTrials team the opportunity to have a role on the drive team. And sometimes, regardless if they want to try it, if they're saying they want to try it or not, you get them in there, right? And sometimes they find what they want. So, like, my team historically has had about 10 new members or 8 new members per MinneTrials team, and then a variety of returning members. Although we've had a lot of returning members relative to there are a lot of new members relative to returning members the last few years. So it kind of varies a little bit. There's Eden Prairie ran 3 teams last year. They found they didn't get the drive bases built quick enough, and so that was the biggest limiting factor. Having 3 teams was the right amount for their size team. I know.
So you put like 8 to 10 people per team, and then have the more senior people mentor them, or what's the right size for the per robot team?
Yeah, it kind of depends on how you run it a little bit, but that's worked for us. Although the biggest thing is if you have to gauge attendance, like Scott said, right? Last year for us, one team had great attendance and the other team did not, right? And so there was a pretty substantial difference between our 2 teams. One year we had one team that had terrible attendance on Tuesdays, but every other day they were fine. So I think the right size is definitely less than 20 per MinneTrials team, right? Like for us, we wanted every single student to get hands-on with programming and feel like there isn't a bunch of people to carry them, right? They have to contribute because there's no one else there, right? And get involved in every portion that they can and use it as a good sampler. And frequently we have students change. They go, yeah, I went through MinneTrials and I mostly did more mechanical things, but I kind of saw what they were doing over there with the programming, and I know I'm a little late to the game, but can I jump ship over here and see what's going on? And so sometimes that's a great opportunity. But so I think less than 20 is what is any more than that, and there's definitely kids sitting around like any group project, right? Too small if you have attendance, people aren't attending frequently, then it can just be an overwhelming project, right? But I think it's somewhere in that like 10 to 16 range is maybe the sweet spot for total members.
And the other thing to consider, Brian, is that you can have 6 prototyping teams for one chassis, right? So maybe somebody wants to do a catapult, somebody wants to do a wheeled shooter, somebody wants to do some type of an elevator. So there's lots of opportunity to build mechanisms off of a chassis, do the testing, put them on a dolly that you just push around the field, right? It doesn't have to drive. If you can get even drills to run instead of motors, right? There's lots of things that you can do to keep students busy, get them to learn something, even if you end up saying, hey, whichever prototype here works is the one that's going to go on the chassis. And maybe that's how you work your team. So there's no right or wrong way to run this. It's whatever ends up working for you. It does seem like if you can have multiple chassis and you create that sense of competition within your group, that actually might push them a little bit more, but that might not be the right fit for some teams either. So, until you've done it, you just won't know. Pick the path that you think fits your culture the best, and then, start there. Go ahead.
I was just going to quickly add, just that we were very intentional about if there's conflict because there's multiple teams, then this is over and we're doing something else, and not in like a punitive way, but like we're all one team together at the end of this. We're all cheering for each other. We're all wearing the same shirts. Like there was a concerted effort to foster competitiveness between the teams, but ultimately like cohesion. Like this is supposed to be fun and we're giving everyone opportunities. We're not against each other in any way. So we were very clear on that the whole time we were doing MinneTrials last year.
Oh, Scott, you're muted.
I said, and I'm sorry, I was muted. I said, and honestly, MinneTrials is such a collaborative and fun event. It's not that type of competitive thing anyway. Amanda, you were speaking, but you were muted, so nobody heard you.
Yeah, I'm a slow learner. First year you did 2 teams. I just want to clarify because first year we're a little intimidated by this whole thing. Okay, and I heard mention of the game pieces. Are we going to have to procure those? Are they always old game pieces or stuff we can get at Home Depot? That kind of deal.
Well, if you all join, we'll have to figure that one out, the logistics on that, because historically it's all been Metro teams, and either Jason drives around town and delivers game pieces, or I end up at off-season event and hand out game pieces. But I'm not handling logistics this year for that. So, but if we have to mail them or whatever. But yeah, the game pieces, like last year's were beach balls. People went and they acquired their own beach balls and learned that beach ball sizing is weird. I know too much about sizing of beach balls now. But so we acquired enough for every single team to have a couple of game pieces and be able to try them. Plus the shark beach balls were from Target and were discontinued. And like I went to like 7 Targets and picked up every shark beach ball I could.
We have some mentors traveling in the next couple weekends up to the city, so we could do a pickup. So we can maybe talk on Slack if we need to.
Yeah.
Yeah, finding beach balls that are exactly 24 inches in diameter.
But that's phenomenal. It wasn't actually 24.
No, I don't think they ended up being, right?
It's 24 when they're deflated and they're pulled. That's the 24 measurement. Yeah, I know. Yeah,
I vaguely remember it being something like that. And then like the sharks were like 36, or it was just the sharks that you'd bought and you'd measured them, I think, right?
Yeah, I bought beach balls from online and returned them multiple times to get the right ones. So, yeah. But for years, it's been old game pieces or pool noodles in circles, or but yeah, we acquire enough for the event itself and for every team to get some game pieces. So,
I think that we bought 20 beach balls before we got the official beach ball and realized it's a very different size than the ones that we bought, even though they said the size, whatever the size was. Yeah, the size that we got wasn't even close to the size of the official ones for gameplay. So
yeah. I have 20 at my house that are the wrong size, but my kids love them. So
I don't know I honestly have no idea what happened to the 20 that we had.
I should have gotten a picture because I also inflated all of the beach balls and tested them for leaks over a multiple week period. And I returned a lot of sharks to Target for leak problems. So my entire living room was filled with inflated shark balls. And they had a glowing, like a little ball inside that when they moved, they lit up red and blue. And I sent them to MRI last year with a mentor of another team who wasn't even participating in MinneTrials, was at my house. I sent him with a bunch of shark balls. He drove all the way back to Cannon Falls with them in his back seat, and every time he hit a bump, they would all flash, and he thought the cops were pulling him over. And it's like an hour drive from my house to his house. So the game feels interesting.
We joke about the beach balls, but last year actually was a really great game. It was a good game because it was simple enough and there was a very interesting collection of mechanisms. I mean, you would think, oh, there's only so many ways you could throw a beach ball over a net, but actually most robots look very different. So it was a deceptively simple challenge, but then we got down to it. Everybody solved the problem slightly differently, it seemed. It was a good event.
Yeah, we've had a lot of game ideas. It usually involves us in a backyard with a bunch of random things we brought and trying some stuff out. And but we really try to hit something that, there's going to be a lot of options to build robots for, and that it's not immediately obvious that there is a best path. And we also try to fit it for what we anticipate this year's FRC game will look like. And sometimes we hit it pretty good, and sometimes we miss. So
We've had a lot of mentors talking, but if there are any students on the call, if you're willing to share what you loved about MinneTrials, would really love to hear from some of the students on the call about what they think is the best part from a student perspective. If anyone is on the call and willing to speak up, or throw in the chat. I know that now I forgot who it was. Somebody's on the road. If you want to throw it in the chat, we'll happily share it out as well here for all of our podcast listeners that'll be listening to this instead of seeing the chat. One piece of advice we did last year for the human simulation that I think worked really well is we previously had the students walk like a robot, and some students would walk faster than others, and sometimes they'd walk and they just reach to the side and be like, you don't have a side intake, you have a front intake, you need to walk to the front. Last year we put the students in rolling desk chairs, and that was a lot more representative of the speed of the robots at which they move around the field and the agility that they have to get around obstacles. If you have to do it while scooting in a chair, that worked really well. I think that we'll probably do that going forward in the future, is to have the students sit in rolly chairs, because then the thing with the rolly chairs, you can just kind of swing yourself around, and tank drive, not quite so agile. But it was better than having a student just like step sideways, right? It was like, no, you're not Mechanim, you don't have swerve, you can't go sideways. And so it helped us get a better simulation of what was going on.
So our solution to that, Scott, was to have two students, and one of them, every student who's a robot has a student who polices them for robot-like actions or non-robot-like actions. And that combo seemed to be fairly accurate. Requires more students, but one of them just focused on, no, you went too fast there. Slow down, or you turned in a way that doesn't make sense. Let's try that again.
Daniel posted in the chat here, I always did like how much hype there was at all of the ones I went to, especially last year. I had gotten so into the last match of it, it was like I was hypertension. So yeah, it's a fun, it really is. It's like we've said before, it's a half a field. It's not a full field. It's 2-on-2 instead of 3-on-3. But it's just as exciting. And often so more so because you've got kids that have never done this before, and they're like, hey, we did it. We didn't know anything about what we were doing, and there's our robot out on the field.
Yeah, that first year of mine, when it was the first time doing a competition in which I had put the effort in on a robot, and like you're there, you're like, this is awesome. Like this, I did not know that this was what this was like, and I think it's like the point at which it made me like love robotics. Jeremy, you get your hand up.
Yeah. I was gonna ask about CAD. Like we were talking, and we think it's like MinneTrials is just super great for build. They get to use every single power tool. They get to make a drivetrain, all that. They get to prototype with plywood. Electrical gets to debug, do all the electrical things that you normally do, basically. And then programming, of course. But we were just trying to think of CAD, like if there's a way to engage them in it. I don't know if anybody has any advice or any thoughts, or because our robots last year were literally 2x4 and plywood. I mean, they weren't, then we can CAD that. I mean, obviously, but
yeah, we CAD'd that.
Any thoughts?
We went after it last year with CAD and CAD'd our 2x4 and plywood robots, and they had a good time. My team right now really likes having drawings of every part, and that makes it easier to build things. And so they CAD'd the whole thing of 2x4 and plywood, and learned that 2x4s aren't 2 inches by 4 inches. And we had that talk early, so it wasn't a surprise, but right, and put the thing in CAD, and I think that helped everyone around. And they're simpler robots, so they're simpler to CAD. Plus, it's a little bit easier to put two 2x4s together in CAD in a way that it's going to be constructed correctly, right? Because you're basically just slapping them together and putting some screws through them than it is to put 1x2s with tube plugs or bolts or rivets or gusset, right? Like honestly, what you're CADing is quite a bit simpler. And so they went for it that way. But
our plan this year is we just lost a lot of seniors who knew a lot of stuff. So we've got freshmen and sophomores, and they're pretty bright. Some of them got going on CAD last year. Programming, we're still getting our shoes on, and we're counting on the yearlings, the people who came on board last year but really didn't get the kind of practice they needed to kind of step into that CAD and programming spot. So the new people, we have 4 new people. I mean, we're pretty small, but the goal is to have first and second year people actually work on the robot this year. And at this point, I'm optimistic. Check back in a month.
Tom, you got your hand up?
Yeah. Hey, Jason, one thing you said that I've been thinking about over the past couple of years, you commented on every part being in CAD. And you said something about the students enjoying that, if I caught that correct. Do you mind just recapping that again and just confirming that you really mean every part?
I don't know about every part, but the build students who are putting the robot together would prefer that every part is in CAD. Right? But yeah, my team started doing a few engineering drawings, I don't know, 3 years ago. And then every time we had engineering drawing, those parts just came out better. And there was less stress about them, and they felt like they had a better idea of where things went. And so then the communication back was, hey, let's do more drawings. And for some reason, we have a bunch of students who like doing drawings, which is the part of work that I don't like doing, so I don't understand. But and so they've kind of gotten on that. We have a lot of discussions lately of what is necessary on a drawing, and we haven't mastered that flow, but we print all of our drawings and they travel with parts as they're being manufactured. And that's what's helped our manufacturing flow.
And that's actually another question for me. I'm retired, but the engineers that still work with our team are in environments where they don't do printed drawings anymore. And so that's been kind of an interesting thing to try to figure out what to do about that. So I'm glad you brought that up.
Yeah. It works. It's been working for us, and we're still working on that process. But
yeah, using a printed drawing as a traveler, I think that's really valuable. Yeah.
Nightcrawler had 2 very different approaches to the robots that we built last year. We had what I would call our more traditional MinneTrials approach, where students are clamping boards and plywoods together to try to find the dimensions they want, and then firing screws through places to make adjustments and things like that. And that was our catapult team, right, Max? That was to just kind of put that, and we had pneumatics on that. We had air on that robot. We found an old air compressor and some pistons, and that one was a catapult one. And then our other team decided to do a wheeled shooter, and they took advantage of needing to build side plates. And 2 of our newer students, Eli, I think it actually might have been only Eli. I think she was the only one that was doing the CAD on that, but she sat shoulder to shoulder with a returning student who backseat drove and explained to her how to draw out a side plate and how to draw the bearing holes and things like that and figure out the dimension for that back scoop thing. And then we ran it through the CNC, and I think we did one in plywood, and then we found some old PETG polycarb stuff off of an old field that we scavenged from at the end of Mini or MRI a couple of years prior, and then we ran that through the CNC, and we used that as our final parts. And the good and bad there is Eli, she learned how to CAD, and it was a great experience, and it was fantastic that she got to do some CAD in the fall. The bad part there was that we were spending a lot of time waiting for it to get through the fabrication process before we could stick it on the robot. Meanwhile, the catapult team is doing all these prototypes and making adjustments, and there's visually things that you can see going on at those meetings. And I think some of the students were getting a little worried and concerned, but then of course, once those pieces finally, after 2 or 3 or 4 meetings, made it off the CNC and were mounted, then it was like, holy cow, this is really cool. We actually made something that you might actually see a company make, right? Because to the new students, are like, I didn't know you could even just come up with this piece of plastic and suddenly it turns into a thing. So that was really cool. It was the first time we'd ever used CAD on our MinneTrials robots. We've had some discussions about the approach this year, and I think we're going to wait to see what the game is and what the ideas are before we try to determine how much we'll do in CAD and what we'll just do, what I would call the old school way of, holding 2 things up and then figuring out where it's going to go.
Yeah. For the catapult, I remember we did get about a week extra of programming testing before the other team had it all made out and mounted and started testing out the robot. But I think in the end, it wasn't actually that big of a difference. So if you have the opportunity to get some kids into CAD, with it not like slowing down the overall team by that much, even just a week, is probably enough time for that. I think it is probably worth it overall to getting new students into CAD. And I believe Eli is still big into CAD, right?
Yeah, unfortunately, Eli didn't come back to the team this year, but after she did that CAD experience for MinneTrials, she would constantly come up to me and say, look what I CAD'd over the weekend, because she has a 3D printer at home. And so she was starting to do all this CAD at home on these personal projects. And it was super exciting to hear her just get so excited about CAD and manufacturing and 3D printing. So it was a great experience for her. She was one of our biggest contributors to CAD last year as a first-year student on the team. I feel I'm adequately or accurately representing the fact that she got a lot out of that experience for her last year.
Yeah. Does anyone else have any experience with that? With having doing CAD for their robot?
We typically use CAD to model motion, and it's what Scott was just describing. I mean, if you can pin a couple of boards and get what you're looking for, that works. I think using CAD, especially in 2D early on, really is quite effective. So that may save you time that will make up for whatever you spend on just the gritty knowledge of how to use the tool in the first place.
Inconceivable for the new folks here. Tom, have you done MinneTrials before? Has MillerBot's been to MinneTrials? I can't remember.
Yeah,
okay.
I think we won the corn maze unbelievably, and
nice.
we were back there again last year. Yeah.
Corn conundrum. Okay. So anyway, one of the things that I will give a piece of advice for is our first 2 years, we handed students a KOP chassis in a box and said, okay, your first task is to put this chassis together. That chassis is not a beginner chassis. Kids struggle. And if you put the belts on the wrong way, or getting that switch back around is not a small effort if you put something together wrong. So put your veterans on the chassis, give the kids, have them focus on mechanisms. That's my piece of advice is, in fact, Jason, you don't even need to, at least in last year's manual, you could reuse a drive base.
Oh,
yeah.
We just tear it down to the functioning drive base.
Yeah. And that's what we did too.
Do that.
Yeah. We said, kids aren't learning a lot from putting together a kit of parts chassis. Let's focus on mechanism design. And that worked really well for the kids last year because there was a lot less frustration. It was a lot more fun. And so if you have a drive base already put together, do not tear it apart. If it's not put together, have your captains and your mentors do that while the kids focus on, again, assuming that the rules stay the same and you don't have to build everything from zero. Don't throw that kit of parts chassis at your kids. Have some veterans do it.
Yeah, we throw some return members at it. and it's kind of like a rite of passage at this point. Like
I was gonna say that
you should
I
know all
think-
this at this point, and yeah, go fix it. It's not quite working. That's your task for the next 2 meetings.
I think we learned from our summer camp. We had our veteran students assemble little FTC drive bases so that the summer camp kids could just figure out what they needed to do a mechanism. That worked really well. And assembling the drive base during summer camp would have been the entire summer camp. That would have been like not fun for anybody. So I think that's probably what we need to do in the next couple of weeks is put the drive bases together, get them into CAD, so that I think people can put their mechanisms on that and learn those skills, because assembling a complicated thing is not what you want to do for this trial. You want to have people think about how to solve the challenge, make the mechanism, program the things, and see if you can succeed. Because yeah, you're right. Probably building a drive base in the next 6 weeks is probably not a fun thing for students to do.
Yeah, teams have suffered that before, where the new members spend so long building the drive base that then they don't have much time for mechanisms, and then the returning members have to step in to help bridge that gap, and then it's not as much fun for everyone. Every year, one of our teams is like, we want it in a different size configuration, or with the opening in a different spot, electronics moved, and that's a whole trade-off conversation, which is a good conversation of like, okay, you can do that, but that's going to take you time. Is it worth it? You have to decide.
And the nice thing about having a drive base right out of the gate is that you can immediately put your electrical folks to work wiring it, and they don't have to, because you're prototyping kids. If you're picking up a ball or picking up corn cobs or whatever it might be, they're going to spend weeks trying to figure out what is the right way to do a mechanism. And during all of that time, you can get that chassis wired and your programmers can start driving it. If you get encoders on your drive base, they can start trying to do a move off the line auto or a drive and turn right auto or whatever it might be. And so if you've got that chassis working right away, then it gives your programmers the point to the where they can say, well, all we have to do now is run this one motor to run the shooter or to run the pickup or whatever it is, run the elevator. And so we all know that programmers usually get the short end of the stick when it comes to building a robot. Well, if your programmers, all they have left to do is to run one motor or to run a solenoid or whatever it might be, that makes the experience more fun for them, right? And so it's a good tip to try to get a driving chassis and do all your prototyping on a dolly with casters or something like that.
And we go a step further, and we provide a driving drivetrain that has code, wired electronics, and it's mechanically together, right? Like, so they can plug it in, turn on the laptop, and start moving that thing around day one, and from there it's everything in there. And it gives the programmers some kind of code to start with of like, hey, let's understand this, and then add to it. And we don't have electrical students on my team. Everyone just chips in there. We don't divide our team that way, so we don't really need to have electrical students somewhere or have something to do. So we just give them a full driving drivetrain from last year that we ripped the mechanism off of.
For those of you who have the MinneTrials experience, do you have encoders on your drive base? And which ones do you use if you do?
We do not. We tried to put some on a couple of years ago, and it became such a mess that we just dead reckon. Or
last year was the first year we put encoders on. So back when we actually used to run a Kit Apart's chassis or a West Coast chassis, instead of using those press-on magnetic encoders, we started buying Gray Hills. And so Gray Hills have a shaft, and then there's a shaft that comes out of the gearbox, and you can attach those with surgical tubing and zip ties. So you get a little bit of play in there, but it's not too bad. But those Gray Hills are so much easier to deal with. And we've got either we found or we designed a 3D print part that goes in between the sims on those Kit Apart chassis, and so it just slides in, and then the encoder mounts there, and the shafts line up, and you just zip tie the shafts together. So we really like the Gray Hills. It makes it really easy to get encoders on. You can run those encoders then to your Robo Rio, and you can do into the does it go into DIO or does it go to AIO? I don't remember. Or maybe it even goes into the talons. I cannot remember how they get wired because that's not my specialty. But we really like those Gray Hill encoders. And then, of course, you've got a nice set of encoders if you need them for something else down the road that aren't that, they don't press on that shaft. And those press on encoders, I don't know a lot about them other than I know that people hate them. So we like using the Gray Hills.
Yeah, I would say overall, right, like everything, it takes a little experimentation to find what fits for your team on structure and how many teams and whatnot. But everyone, by and large, I've heard has had a great experience the first time, right? And they go, okay, we had a good experience. Here's some things we're probably going to do differently next time, right? And go from there. And so lots of teams run one MinneTrials team. Lots of teams run multiples. We try to make it nice and easy for that, so that they can get a variety. And if you do have multiple teams, we will ask you what you want your teams to be named. Otherwise, they're just going to be like 2052A and 2052B. And if you're Nightcrawler a couple of years ago when they had two and they had to name them, A team became Applebee's and B team became Bumblebees because I think the Bumblebees chose first.
Yeah, we started doing A team and B team, and of course, then you have an implied hierarchy, despite the fact that the B team always won. Some other fun trivia from our experience here is that at least one Nightcrawler team has always been a captain in alliance selection and has never picked the other Nightcrawler team to join them on their alliance. In 4 years, they've never picked each other. So we started doing red and blue so that there wasn't an implied hierarchy. But the kids always find a way to make it fun.
Yeah, I believe last year there were some really weird names.
Yeah.
One of them, the Catapult team, kept the restaurant theme and went with Red Lobster.
Because they were the red team.
Yeah, they were the red team. And then the other one, it was like Blue's Clues, and it was like a reference to a TV show. I still don't know where they got that name. You got the hand up.
Hey, 2530 students, I know there's a lot of you on here. I really hope you have some questions because I hate doing all the talking, but I do have one and I'm going to put it out there. So I have to be honest, one of the barriers to us doing this year is to come up with the competition. It's like $900 for a bus and the registration fees. And so like we haven't committed the money to come up, and we thought, okay, well, the build is good. You know, no matter what, the build experience is good, even if we don't go to comps. But I have to admit that, like, you know, going to comps is what gives you the drive, right? So I just wanted some comments and thoughts on that, on how you have seen that importance of that, and how many students end up like going. I know sounds like you're mostly Metro teams. I'd like to be the first non-Metro. That would be a cool thing. But just if you could comment on that, whether it's worth it to come.
Definitively, yes.
Yeah. I don't know. It's it's like that thing at the end of our training season that everybody like goes to, and it's really what makes those kids just like really, really excited for the actual season to start. Because after that, we just have a couple of December meetings where people will work on a couple projects here or there, and then it's winter break. And then everyone comes back and they haven't done anything for 2 weeks and they're really excited. And then you hit with them with the kickoff and everything. And then I think it helps a lot with like student retention rate and them being like excited to start. So that's what the experience I had.
Yeah.
I think that the kids are also, they're around the robot more. Like we go to these off-season competitions and some kids they're always in the stands, and it takes a bit to pull them out of the stands to go walk through the pits. But MinneTrials, it feels like quite a bit different vibe. It's a smaller venue. It's a smaller event. I feel like the kids really intermingle a little bit more. One of the comments I heard, I think it was 2 years ago or 3 years ago, we had a new student who their they were in the pit because they had to drive next, because everybody is either driving or human player. It's required. And somebody needed a part, and they came over and said, "Hey, Nightcrawler, do you have one of these?" I'm like, "Yeah, here you go." And they're like, "Wait, you just gave another team a part?" And that was like that introduction to competition of like, "Whoa, this is really cool that and then we needed something, and I said, "Can you go over there and ask them if they have this?" And they looked at me like I'm scared to do that, but they did it, and they came back and was like, "Yeah," they were like, "No problem." They didn't even think about it. They just gave us what we wanted. So that was a really neat experience too, where in a smaller venue, in a smaller operation, kids really kind of get immersed into what it is to be in an FRC competition. The other thing I'll say, I mean, the off-season stuff, or the train, how it has changed our training has really made a huge impact on our team. And I've talked about this on roundtables last year and probably even the year before, where we have fundamentally changed our build season because of MinneTrials. And what I mean by that is, when I joined the team, this is my 11th year, we wanted that build season so that every student understood everything about what it took to build the robot. And so we would have every student do brainstorming. We would have every student prototype, and back then it was cardboard and duct tape. We would have every student kind of do a pluses and deltas on this design versus that design. And we literally would go 2 weeks before we'd even start putting together a real prototype. And it was a huge problem. And especially now, with as complicated as the robots are now, you can't burn 2 weeks before you start building something. And so by doing MinneTrials, we don't give up that experience. We just push it into the fall. And so now we don't need every student to brainstorm. We don't need every student to evaluate design concepts and ideas. And so we have every student get that experience in the fall. And then when we do our real build season in January, we create a design team, and anybody who's been through the design process, and now everyone has because of MinneTrials. But if you've been through one side of design series or competition type of experience, then you can volunteer to be on the design team, and the design team has to put in extra effort. So they're doing Zoom calls between meetings, or maybe they're at school having extra meetings between meetings. And we were able to shorten our build season, or accelerate. How about that? We were able to accelerate our build timeline last year by a full week. We at week 3, we said, we really feel like we're a week ahead. This has never happened. And it was because we took that entire experience that we wanted every student to have, and we pushed that in the fall because of MinneTrials. And it made a huge difference for us last year. Now, we still lost ground, because you always lose ground. Things always take longer than you think it's going to take. But honest to goodness, there was a period last time when the captains and mentors looked around and said, "Are we really ahead of schedule? We're really this close. We're really this far after 2 weeks." And it was all because we intentionally said, we need to restructure our build season, and we need to take the things that are burning time, and we need to make sure that we're doing those during MinneTrials so that the students still get the education and the experience. But we can take advantage of not doing that during the first 2 weeks and make things move faster. And it was a big difference for us. It really was.
Yeah, Jeremy, you got your hand up there.
Just super quick, I was going to add, one of our like kind of core values for our team is accessibility, and we view MinneTrials that way. So we do ask for an activity fee to be on the team, but we don't do that until actual build season in January and February. So anybody who has any interest can do MinneTrials completely for free from beginning to end. And I know some teams don't have an activity fee at all, but that's just one way that we, in a similar way that kind of Scott was talking, like a way for everyone to get experience, which is why we are making some odd choices of having a lot of smaller teams this year, because we just really want everyone. We want to do what we can to have everyone have an opportunity. So because we had such a good time last year, and we think it's, again, just really valuable, and the competition experience for our students was wild. We had a lot of 9th graders and 10th graders, and got to do things they wouldn't have had. They would just wouldn't have been able to do. If we were going to in Charlie, which is a great event, but there's only so much time. I think we had like 8 or 9 MinneTrials matches. I mean, that's a lot of people getting a chance to be in the pit and then go out on the drive or on the field and do it. So again, I can't speak well enough about it. I just really appreciate everyone who's put in the effort for it the last few years.
Yeah. I mean, Scott alluded to the venue being a little different, right? So we're in elementary school. It's the gym that's 2 basketball courts sized venue. So the pits, so we cap it at 12 teams. So the pits are all along the wall. So everyone can see the field from their pit. And queuing is just in the empty space in the middle between the field and the pits, right? And so there's just it's a lot more intimate than some other venues, right? And there's a lot less space or travel time, right? And since there's only 12 teams at max, and there's 4 teams on the field, and there's 4 teams in queue, there's 4 teams in their pit, it's a pretty fast turnaround. One of the older years, we only had 7 teams, so sometimes teams had back-to-back matches. But the fast turnaround makes regionals feel like an eternity sometimes. Between events or between matches, right? And so the students are like, "Oh, this is easy. We got all the things on our checklist done, and we have time to make improvements." So right, so 12 teams on Saturday, 12 teams on Sunday, totally separate teams for there 24 teams total. Nightcrawler's already offered to host a day if we have enough teams.
I said I would try to get the job. the benefit that we have,
will help them.
Scott, the benefit that we have is
we
that
would help you.
We already have a full field of carpet. We already have a full field of field walls, so we could put together a field really quick if we had a place to put it.
Yeah.
And so I'm just waiting to hear whether, we've got 40 teams that want to play. So can you help us find another venue?
We're not there yet. We're a little lower. I didn't do as much advertising earlier in the season this year because I was on post leave.
Like Jeremy, we love this so much. We want to make sure that it works for people. So if space is needed, we will go to bat and see if we can find a space and then take our field that we already have for week 0 and get one set up.
Last count, I think we're at 20. So there's definitely still some room. Right, and I'm sure Jeremy will give up one spot if there's really
absolutely.
a team that needs it. But yeah, and
Jeez,
then
you make me out to be the problem child. I'm not the problem child. I swear to you.
The other nice thing is that I feel like we get a lot of parent, grandparent, random cousins attendance at the event, so the stands are pretty full, which is nice, and so. It's a lot easier to bring a 4-year-old sibling or cousin to this event. And right, for the Metro teams, a lot of parents show up to this. It's at an elementary school, parking's free, and there's plenty of it for us. So we get a lot of good attendance. For my team, the percentage of parents who come is much higher for MinneTrials than anything else. And, partially that's because we're hosting it. So it's the shortest drive time. But it's much easier to get in. The only downside is that the bathrooms are sized for elementary school kids. So be prepared for tiny sinks and tiny tables at lunch. But yeah.
All right. Well, we're running up against our 8:30 time here. We got about 10 minutes left. Does anybody have any burning questions that they've had in their mind or stories they want to share before we wrap things up here? I mean, I hope what's come out of this is everyone has realized, hey, this is really cool. And now once this YouTube video and the podcast hits, Jeremy, Jason, you'll probably get flooded with requests. So we'll have to see what comes from that. But yeah, I mean, if you've listened to the FRC Roundtable for any period of time, you know that MinneTrials is a very frequent topic that comes up, and a lot of people have seen the benefits and sing its praises. So it's been a great program.
Yeah, and I will say, we've played with the idea of, right now it's mostly Metro teams because it's just logistical difficulties, like you said, for others. But we don't really have any issue, and we'd love to see a MinneTrials location outside the metro. Right, but it's because that really opens up the opportunity for a lot more teams in that area wherever it is. But we just got to find the team willing to host and whatnot. So
yeah, but if you're doing 2, maybe 3 teams per school, it only takes 3-4 teams or FRC teams that want to put on a MinneTrials. So for anyone listening or watching on the replay, maybe it's too late this year, but start planning now. Or maybe it's probably not too late this year. It doesn't take a whole lot to build. If you can get access to carpet, it does not take that long to build the field elements for a MinneTrials game. It's very simple.
We have to rebuild. So we don't actually have a field boundary. Our field boundary is made of 2x10s. And they all got stolen when our trailer got stolen over the summer. So we got to rebuild the whole thing this year. So it's not too bad. We've had to rebuild it several times. One year, I think someone else had the field boundary and they scrapped it. And we went to put the field. I think Scott was here for this. Friday night, we're putting the field together and we're like, so you brought the field boundary? And they go, what are you talking about? So we had to build it. We had to go to Home Depot and Menards quick and get some stuff. And
I was not there that night, but I came early the next morning and I heard the story and I was shocked that
we were only there till like 10. It wasn't even that bad. But yeah, so it's a good time. But the moral of the story is we try and keep the field elements pretty straightforward. And sometimes we play off of previous year's field elements, like the immediately previous year. So you may be able to just modify it quick.
That was a lesson learned. We took apart our loading station and then used the exact same loading station the next year.
Yeah, we'll probably keep the same loading station for a while, so don't mess with that.
I think we took it apart again. That's okay. It's not that hard to put together.
Yeah, they're pretty simple. I think most teams probably just roughly get one together and prop it up on a table, or we tend to put painter's tape on the wall at different heights for different things and just call it good and roll with that. Works pretty well for us.
That's what we did last year the whole time practicing. We didn't even build a field element. We just put tape on the wall.
Yeah. And then there's CAD for the whole field. That's probably the holdup right now on the rules, is my guess, because that always takes a amount of time. But
stall for me. Give me a few minutes here. The last two, maybe 3 years of MinneTrials are out on YouTube because we streamed them. So I will find some links so you guys can look at past games.
There's an archive on the webpage now, Scott.
Oh, there is. Oh, then I don't need to.
The rules, the CAD, the video stream that the Nightcrawler for the past several years has live streamed, so you can go back and see. Right, Max can go try and find the one team in Zoned Out that managed to find a way to always score an auto because they started with their game piece in the goal and they just had to drive away. That was a nice little Easter egg in the rules that one team found that they could do, and their auto score was ridiculous as a result.
You're right. So MinneTrials.org, and MinneTrials is, for those that are listening, MinneTrials.org. So MinneTrials.org. And I did not notice the menu has an archive link. So there you go. There's the archive link. That's awesome.
Emilio just updated that like 2 weeks ago. So
very cool. Yeah. I enjoyed the Corn Conundrum. The Corn Conundrum game was a lot of fun. That was a tough challenge, actually. Those 3 wiffle balls that zip tied together, and then getting them to drop into a 12-inch sono tube, concrete tube. Yeah. That was an interesting challenge, and both of our teams approached it a very different way. It's always been very interesting to see, even with these simpler games, how even 2 teams from the exact same school are coming up with very different ideas. And I love that. I love that we're not building 2 shooters that run the same way, or 2 ground pickups, or whatever it might be. and part of that is intentional. We try to steer the kids away from the same design because we want them to experience what the difference is, and you can make any design functional at this level. So it's not like we're trying to steer one team into a bad design. That's not the objective. But it's interesting when we start talking about trade-offs, because then you really get into the nitty-gritty of how this design will work, but you have to take into consideration these 2 or 3 things, like not overdriving your elevator and busting the string or things like that.
Yeah, and be prepared for volunteer conscription on site. So everyone is required to field reset. So
go ahead, Tom.
Just one thing I thought I might add. Our first year was Corn Conundrum. I commented we won that year. And we won because we actually scouted, and a team that was really poorly ranked just really fit well with what we were able to do. And it's one thing that most teams probably miss here is the opportunity for scouting. I just thought it was worth mentioning that.
Yeah, actually, as our team's strategy lead, that is something I know I'm planning on setting up with our full. We use scouting tablets and setting that up for this game. And then I think we're also, at least I am, and me and our one of our strategy mentors have been talking about having independent strategy leads for each of these teams in order to get more kids excited in pit scouting and train scouters so that we can have better data at our first competition, which has always really been an issue for us.
Yeah, actually, MinneTrials is a great place where you can make every kid pit scout and then come back with notes about what do you like about this robot? Because then they have to talk to the other teams and they have to look really close at, man, their robot did approach this very different from ours, or theirs is the exact same thing, except for they did this for pickup where we did that. So that's a really neat opportunity too. And again, it's 12 teams. It's a small scale venue and really comfortable to get around and chat with people. All right, last call. Anything else? All right, round of applause for Max. Thank you, Max, for moderating tonight's call. We really appreciate it. Very good job. And next week, so a few announcements about coming up stuff. So we didn't lead off with this very well, but the Roundtable has been completely kind of revamped for this year in a couple of different ways. I led to this in the email that you probably all got if you're part of the mailing list. But the Minnesota FRC Roundtable is now just the FRC Roundtable. So we want to encourage teams from anywhere to join us if they're interested. We have a brand new YouTube channel, which was should have been linked in the email. Maybe I forgot that. I did that while I was sitting at MRI this weekend. So I threw it together at the last minute. And then now we have a podcast. The podcast I know for sure is on Spotify, and I've also seen it's been propagated to Amazon Music, Audible or Amazon, whichever way you listen to it. I'm not sure if it's hit Apple yet, but we have a plan to propagate it to all of the podcast services. Apple's a little bit tricky. It requires some extra setup, but I'm not sure where that's at. And part of the emphasis, the impetus to doing this is because we have some official first sponsored content, and next week will be the first one of that series. So every other week from now until kickoff, we're doing an officially first sponsored speaker, and we'll be doing one every week after that. So that's really awesome because it takes kind of a lot off of my plate in terms of trying to get people to sign up and get things out there. However, I will say we are booked until the last week in January already. It's crazy. It's so great. It's so great that so many people have signed up to host a session. Of course, half of them were taken by the first folks. But it's really exciting to see the excitement around the FRC Roundtable. And I know that it's the first night, and we still had a nice crowd show up tonight, and hopefully that just grows. So please share this with your students. mentors did all the talking tonight, or other than Max, but we really want to make this a student focused as much as possible, but it's also, we know it's a great resource for the mentors. So please try to encourage as many students as you can. I know Sunday night's kind of a weird night, but it's the one night where everyone except for Inconceivables aren't having a meeting. So Inconceivables, they have their meeting on Sunday nights to prep for the week. So we picked that night thinking that it would be the most likely the one night that would be available, and we're going to keep doing that. All right. Once again, thanks everyone, and hopefully we'll see you next week. Bye all.
Good night, everyone.
That's it for this week's FRC Roundtable. Join us live all season long, every Sunday night. Visit the website at team2052.com/roundtable to sign up for weekly invites. In the meantime, keep building, keep learning, and we'll see you next week.